Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Deal Scout. Josh here. On today's show, we're going to have a panel conversation with two acquisition entrepreneurs. So people who are investors who like to buy businesses. And we're going to talk a lot about how to find good deals. So on today's show, we're going to have returning champion, Mr. Jon, and new guest, Mr. Matthew. So first, let's go to Jon. Jon, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what are you currently focusing on?
Yeah, my name is Jon Stoddard, and I run a company called Stack Acquisitions. We we acquire software companies, and we help other companies acquire companies. And I also run a podcast like Josh does called Top M&A Entrepreneurs, where we interview active acquisition entrepreneurs. So that's part of my deal flow of creating an audience and the specialty around that. And we use LinkedIn every day to find deal sourcing.
Cool. All right, Matt, to you, tell us a little bit about who you are and what are you currently focused on?
Yeah, so my name is Matt Anderson, and in the entrepreneur acquisition space, I am what is called like a deal maker. So I like doing deals myself. I love doing the consulting side, and I love bringing people deals. It's kind of my superpower, I guess you could say.
Very cool. All right. So this is going to be panel discussion. I'm going to bring up questions and topics that we're going to approach. And then what we'll do is then we'll have some fun. I've got a deck of cards in front of me that have questions on it, right? So I just bought it, just opened it up. So we're going to ask some personal questions and business questions as we go through. And I have no clue some of the questions that are going to be pulled out of the box today. All right. So Matt, let's start with you since I haven't had an opportunity to spend some time with you. And at any time, if you guys want to interject, just do a quick little hand raise and then I'll know that you guys want to add some additional thoughts. Okay. So Matt, you look like a fairly young guy. You're doing acquisitions and I'm looking at your LinkedIn. You're in the capital space, investor space. Kind of give me an idea real quick how you got involved in this business.
Yeah. So really quickly, my background's mainly in import export. And so I did that traveling the world, mostly super fruits. And I did that on the corporate side. And with that being said, I got to a certain point where they capped my income. And so I went out and did it on my own and became a broker. And it's really a cutthroat business. And it's really not my style. I feel like more than competing, we can collaborate kind of within the business and find a win for everyone. And so I was consulting specifically for a gentleman in Costa Rica. So I speak fluent Spanish, and I was working with this gentleman on a noni farm, if you guys are familiar with noni fruit at all. And we would supply to Asia, Europe, and even here to the United States. But then COVID hit and it kind of shut things down. And while I was working with him, I was actually going through my mind as like, I need to acquire this farm because he's picking who he wants to work with, and has people in line thereafter in case orders fall through. And he was kind of running the show there. And so my thought was that I need to acquire this noni farm. But then COVID had hit and exports were shut down and literally shut down that business for a while. And it's coming back today, and it could be an option here in the future. But my eyes were open to I could acquire a lot more than just a noni farm, in this world. And so that's kind of how I dived in and joined Epic and things along those lines and kind of started rubbing shoulders with those people.
Cool. So you mentioned Epic. Jon, why don't you tell us what Epic is and, how you guys participated and how you guys met?
Yeah, so Epic is a mergers and acquisition course, kind of a coaching mastermind started by Roland Fraser and Scalable Group, Deanna Rogers, Bailey. And it's just a group of individuals that want to acquire companies and do roll-ups and sell them or buy and build, a number of different reasons for exits. But there's about 1,700 people now. And what we do is as soon as you go through this coaching program, you go into a mastermind, and now you're networking with 1,700 people all around the planet, buying and selling companies.
Yeah. Now, Jon, you've been in the world of building businesses. You've had, you've sold a few businesses to some big name brands, and you've been an investor for a while. Now, why are you a part of a community, right? It seems like you've already have the experience, you already have the knowledge on how to buy, build, grow, sell a business. Like, why would you join a mastermind doing that kind of stuff?
Well, I think deal sourcing is probably one of the most difficult parts is finding deals. And you've got to have your network as your net worth, people willing to work with you. I mean, I've got people now that the audience I created, I got people coming to me and going, hey, like a younger guy and say, hey, I need a little help understanding or negotiating this deal or analyzing what it's worth. And I'm happy to contribute to that part. So I love being a part of it. I love giving back. I love just being in the group.
Cool. Matt, as you went from, hey, I'm going to acquire this Noni farm to, oh man, COVID hit. What am I going to do next? What started going through your brain of, like, you said your eyes were opened and you looked at this sort of business acquisitions. Like, how did you go, this is where I'm going to invest my time, energy, and resources?
Yeah. So my mindset has been, at kind of the import export was, hey, I was working, had a job, right? Mm-hmm. And it was going well, but it capped me on my income. And so it's kind of stages for me. And I went out on my own, was able to surpass that income. But then I was also dealing with the competition of, people going behind your back and things like that, where I said, it's not really my style, to that, hey, I want to be the owner. But then there was this next level of, I want to be the owner. Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry about that. My throat's going psycho here. And then there was a next step of, hey, I'd like to be the owner of the company, but I would like to be above that and not necessarily be in the day-to-day trenches of running, because I love the business and I love working on the business, but sometimes the day-to-day in the business isn't my forte or my expertise all the time. So like this farm in Costa Rica, this gentleman he's from Southern California, born and raised in Mexico, but he's lived in the States quite a while. And he would go out there maybe every 10 days just to kind of oversee things, and it ran itself. He had a ranch hand, things like that. And so I'm experiencing this and kind of living it and going, working beside him. And we did this for about a year and a half, and I'm doing consulting and helping out and stuff. And he kind of was leading me into this, like, hey, you want to take this over for me and buy this from me? I'll help you out. And so this kind of got me into that world of and this is what Epic is taught, kind of what Jon was reciting here recently, where it's not necessarily be on the org chart or the organizational chart of the business, but be able to have a little bit of the piece of the pie in a lot of different businesses, which really I think is the name of the game. And that's the larger vision of, people are out there saying, hey, I want this business and it's my own. And, hey, that's great. But how much of your time is that going to take, where that time could be leveraged elsewhere to create more income? And so I guess that's the over 10,000 foot view of the thought of something that's already cash flowing and it's overcome those obstacles, instead of me trying to start something on my own, and someone's already running it. You already have the great employees and everything there.
Very cool. All right. So that's 10,000 feet, right? We're flying in a helicopter over, and Jon and I jump out with a parachute, and we're going to get tactical. And we're like, all right, acquisitions. Jon, yeah, I've got some money. I want to buy business. Don't want to be on the org chart. Don't want to really be operational, but I got some money. I want to put it to work for me. I'm scared to death of what's going on in the world of retail, real estate, or whatever. Jon, let's go buy a business tactically. Jon, what are the first 3 things that we're going to need to do as a group?
Well, we kind of need to sit down and figure out what you're good at, what you like doing, what you're going to tap dance to work every day. And I'm not saying you're going to be in the business, operational, or on the C-suite, but what you like doing, because we want to avoid the things you don't like doing. Let's say it's O&G or trucking or medical or anything like that. But what gets you to tap dance every day and that you just love doing, where your work doesn't become work, becomes what you like doing. We kind of analyze that, and we'll analyze what the size of the business does. And then we got to go out and kind of find kind of businesses that meet your criteria and your price range, what you're comfortable with, who's going to run it if you're not going to run it, the profit margin on that, and what's next. Are you going to buy and just hold it? Or are you going to buy and build, buy and roll up, or are you going to sell it in 3 years? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Kind of all those questions we want to look at before we jump in to say, hey, let's go spend some money.
Sounds good. So before I start tap dancing, you mentioned ONG. What's that mean? What's
Oh,
that stand for?
oil and gas. Oil and gas. Oil and gas, difficult. I just interviewed a guy that did 17 roll-ups in that industry, and it's a difficult industry to be in, depending on the present, administration, whoever's in power.
Yeah, got it. All right. So tap dancing to work, Matthew, like as Jon is talking using this language, tap dancing to work. As a part of this, what do you do that gets you tap dancing? And could you do that for us on video here? No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
Yeah,
But,
right.
but what makes you tap dance?
So what gets me up in the morning? Excited?
Yeah.
So I love I'm going to butcher this saying, it's by Zig Ziglar, but he says, if I can help enough other people accomplish their goals, I'll accomplish my own along the way, or you'll accomplish your own. Right. And that's kind of been my mantra. I mean, even with import exports, like I love seeing people succeed because the byproduct of that is my success also. And so kind of my superpower has been deal flow. And when I say deal flow, it's not going to a broker website. It's finding an owner that's motivated to sell, that's not currently on the market. So it's not a feeding frenzy like you see right now with all these different sites and people are bidding on these businesses. And so being able to hand that over, because like you mentioned in the beginning, I'm a younger guy. I've only been doing this, year and a half. I love it. It gets me up in the morning. It's exciting because every deal's different. And that's what I love about it. But what I'm definitely learning a lot every day. And I think the day you stop learning is when you start going backwards. But helping people that are great, that have been doing this for a while and getting into those and bringing them deals where no one else could for a while, that I don't want to, it's like give myself a little pat on the back, but at the same, it fulfills me and being able to learn and kind of be a shadow and a fly on the wall with them,
Yeah. So awesome, man. Thanks for sharing. Jon, as we're talking, you said one of the first things, man, I just want to get an understanding for, what kind of capital are we working with? What kind of things make you tap dance to work? Like you like doing, you enjoy doing, you're good at, right? So you kind of like going, let's make a good fit between the investor, acquirer and what they're looking for. When have you seen that, maybe other deal makers don't go through that process and they go, oh, you want deals? Here you go. Here's some deals. And they're just throwing deals at you. And maybe it wasn't a good fit. Where have you seen that go wrong? Give us an example.
The first thing you think of is like anybody that goes through any kind of coaching program or in a program and they start sourcing deals on the market the worst business to acquire are the ones that are already listed for sale, like a broker site. And that's worse because the price is there. The intermediary is going to be trouble to deal with. The valuation is usually too high. It's a difficult thing. So we don't even deal with those on-market deals. It's just anything below the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg, which is the off-market deals.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So Jon, let's keep going with this off-market deals, right? So I'm like, all right, you've convinced me. I want this kind of deal and it's off market. It's in ONG, which is oil and gas, right? And we want to get an off market deal. Like how do we even start, man? I don't have a phone book anymore. What's a good way to do this, Jon?
Well, the right mindset, because it's a numbers game and it's a lot of numbers and you're going to reach out to a lot of people and you get a lot of no's. But you're going to be asking questions. You're going to be developing relationship, and it's just a big funnel. It starts with like hundreds or 500 conversations and connections, and down to 1 to 5 possible deals conversation. Because you got to go through a lot of people that are not interested in sale. They don't want to talk to somebody they don't know, and we're trying to find somebody that's exhausted, which is the top reason why somebody wants to sell. Or they're stagnant, their business is at 5 million, can't figure out how to grow. They don't have the mindset to grow. Or unfortunately, like a lifestyle change, like, owners get sick or family gets sick or spouse or something, families. We're not trying to be predators in that case, but you're looking for that change, exhaustion, stagnation, lifestyle. And that's going to require a lot of reaching out to a lot of people.
Now, Matt, So you guys are working together, and we're gonna go through this process of this outreach, off market property, not properties, off market businesses for sale. How does that even look, man? I'm like, holy moly, I'm scared to make cold calls, or this kind of outreach overwhelms me. Matt, I need your help. How are we gonna tackle this together?
Yeah, and just to kind of reiterate real quick what Jon had said, he said everything right, but we do want to make sure that people know that we're not necessarily buying distressed deals either, right? These are businesses that are cash flowing in the positive and moving forward. They just have there's been changes, right? And any one of those changes he talked about, stagnation, lifestyle change, whatever that may be. Yeah. And now the question moving forward of how do we approach these deals, these individuals, if we find them, is that what you were asking?
Yeah. How are we going to find these things, man? How are you going to, when you pick up a phone, like, how do you approach this? Give us your secret sauce.
Yeah. So just kind of off the top of my head, let's say that you're an owner yourself, and I'm like, hey, my name is Matt Anderson. I'm reaching out, and I've probably called you, or let's say I emailed you beforehand, and we get on the phone. It's just, I'll say, hey, my name is Matt Anderson. I'm reaching out here. I work with a large investment fund, whoever that may be. So, or my team. So like Jon and myself, right? And we are looking for, and we'll state their business, ABC Business, which is in oil and gas. And we're looking for a possible acquisition or strategic partnership. At this point, is that something you'd be interested in speaking about, or is that something that would warrant further conversation? You see a lot of templates out there, and I'm not saying they don't work, but at the same time, sometimes they get lengthy if you do mailers or these emails. But in my mind, you're speaking to business owners. These guys are swamped. Get to the point, be cordial about it, but just get a quick yes, a quick no. And if it's a no, get on to the next, and you're one step closer to that yes. If you get a yes, then we dive in, right? Mm-hmm. And then we get on a phone call. But I feel like the response, something simple like that, we get a way better feedback from individuals, because it's like, hey, this guy's quick, he's to the point, but he's respecting my time, and he's not messing around. Got it. But we're not being jerks about it either, Yeah. So,
Jon, how do you get on a phone with the right person, right? So to you, Jon, so we're making cold calls. We're calling in businesses, and maybe this is an approach, but like, is that the best way, cold calling? If so, how do you get to the right person on the line?
Well, I use LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn Sales Navigator because it's 700 million people out there, and they're all CEOs that the people I reached out to. So I'll send a connection request and just ask them, hey, look, I'm looking to acquire a software company between $2 and $15 million. If you're interested in selling, or would you like to grow your business through acquisitions? Let's connect and have a little chat. And here's my Zoom link.
Got it.
Or my Calendly, which I use TidyCal, and they just move to that, and we get on a Zoom call.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. It's just go, hey, I'm looking to buy some businesses in this range. Or, hey, if you want to also buy these businesses, let's chat, right? So hey, go for it, Matt. You raised your hand.
I was going to say, I feel like a lot of people overthink it, because they're like, man, I'm getting in, I'm talking to business owners, whether they're looking in the 5 million, the 10 million, 20 million plus dollar range, these are still real people you're speaking to. It's not like in your mind, a lot of people that I've spoken to, like, I just can't find deal flow, or I have an issue speaking with these owners. And I feel like these individuals that I speak with, they're putting these owners on a pedestal as if there's someone who's greater than they are, just because they have this title. And I'm sure I speak to a lot of great business owners, but they're just normal people, and I think the magic sauce is treating them as such, anyways, that's my 2 cents.
The great 2 cents. Thank you. So Matt, I pulled a card. Want to ask you a question. This is, it says, if you could instill one virtue or value in the next generation, right? So how old are you at the time of this recording?
33.
Okay. What would you like to instill in terms of virtue or value to the next generation? So maybe people in their 20s. What's something that you'd like to pass on to them?
I would say honesty, and the reason why is I've spoken in regards to this is I've spoken to a lot of business owners on the phone, and probably the most repetitive compliment that I get from them after speaking to them is, thank you for being transparent and honest with me and upfront. Because on that 15, 20-minute phone call, and very little of it is about acquisition, because we it's building rapport, it's building trust, finding those commonalities as quickly as possible, letting them know where I'm at, where I stand. This is what I'm looking to accomplish. Are there synergies there or not? And a lot of them, the feedback from that is that would probably be what I'd recommend to individuals, is just be honest and upfront with people.
Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing. Jon, you've done a lot of cool things, building businesses, acquiring businesses, selling businesses, done a lot of cool stuff. What is one of the best decisions you ever made in business and one of the worst decisions you ever made in business?
The best decisions are joining masterminds and coaching programs and learning from people that have done it before. Success leaves clues. And if you want to be successful, you just got to model what their success is. I mean, trying to do it your own, which is letting the ego drive you and go like, I don't want to take any outside influence or questions or anything. That's what always gets me in trouble.
Yeah.
Always. You don't run it by your wife, it's going to get in trouble. You don't run it by a business partner and whatever, see what everybody else thinks, that's going to get you in trouble.
Yeah, bro. You just found a wound in my side. The worst decision I ever made in business was making a decision without my wife, and it cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. It did not feel good. It took me a few years to recover from that one, and to rebuild the trust in the relationship. That was painful. And it was business. I didn't go run around. So that was such a good piece of input, Jon. Good job here.
I mean, it's all about what Matt was talking about. It's the transparency. I mean, if an idea is a good idea, it's going to flow. I mean, you're not going to get this idea where, oh my God, nobody else is going to see this idea and I better capitalize on it before I tell anybody. That's not reality. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, so true. So Matt, you and I are going into business, right? And I started to learn about your superpower and such, right? So you're like, as we're building and growing, this is my superpower. This is what I could add to the table.
Yeah.
Right. Using the same logic of that. On the flip side, you're like, Josh, whatever we do here, keep me out of this space in the business because I'm the worst at that. What is your weakness?
My weakness, and I hate to think of it as my weakness because I want it to become better, right? This is what we're constantly working on, is I hate diving in and doing the due diligence and the numbers.
Yeah.
Like I like staying above it, 10,000 feet, looking at them. Hey, this makes sense. Let's move forward. But the due diligence behind it, and that's kind of where a team comes in place and stuff, that take that from me. But I know I need to do it and learn it. But because I have a team, I'll take it slow doing that.
Yeah. And I've known Jon for a while. He's pretty good at due diligence and asking tough questions and digging into things. Jon, so as a partner and as you guys are building this, what are some tips and tricks for due diligence, right? Because you guys are looking at 500 deals a month potentially, right? You're looking at a lot to get to one yes. What are some tips and tricks on how you bring to the table being a team member with Matt on due diligence?
Yeah, I got to tell you, if they're not ready to share their income statement, cash flow statement, or quality of earnings work up front and be transparent about that, it always immediately raises a yellow flag. It's not a red flag yet, but if they're piecemealing like the income statement or piecemealing the cash flow statement or the balance sheet, you're going to go, there's a problem there.
Yeah. I found that to be the case is, if people are asking us for help or if we're going through the process and they start holding back information, that's a red flag for me. Because if they're going to, hide stuff, then I'm going, what else are they hiding behind these spreadsheets and such like that? So Matt, what are some red flags you look for in a deal where you know that it's just not going to be a good deal?
I mean, it's kind of like just starting in the beginning, I guess. If they're holding back information from you, and honestly, it's also the communication of the owner, because that's a lot of what I do is the communication side of things. Some are super responsive and some aren't, and they'll draw it out, and that's fine. But once you get into the due diligence and things like that, and that continues on, sometimes it's just a rabbit hole. It starts to take you down. And it's one of those time vampires where it just sucks that time away from other deals, because we go through a ton of deals. And if we're taking these things through the funnel, these deals, and you have 500 here, and then you're going down that funnel and sifting them out. Again, it takes time away. And if you stop one portion of that funnel, then you got to start cranking it again to get it going. And so that would probably be one of the biggest things, is to see how responsive the owner is, because that helps to show motivation too, because if an owner's doesn't have any sense of motivation at all, and they're looking for a pie in the sky number, that's just a waste of time. And from our perspective, right? I know everyone's different. They have different perspectives when they're buying, but from our perspective, if an owner doesn't want to give the time of day, or if they're only responding once a week, sometimes they're just like, well, we'll put it by the wayside and we'll send some feelers out there, but it's not a full-time.
Yeah, I want a couple of added things on that. I mean, if we, Matt and I are essentially working for a private equity fund, say, hey, I'm looking for a medical billing company and it needs to be in this range. And great, we got one. We'll find one. We'll put it in front of you. But, if they can't get those earnings to them in like all one Dropbox or some kind of deal, like, hey, here's 3 years of income statements, here's cash flow statement, here's a balance sheet, but it comes in piecemeal, you go, okay, there's a problem there. We should probably just delete this one and move on, because if this is the problem now, it's going to be worse when we get to the tax returns or the bank statements.
Yeah. And you could spend all your time gathering docs and chasing docs, right?
Yeah. And here's another thing. Matt and I are coming across more and more international deals. And that is not something that international players actually do all the time. It's a little bit different process to say, hey, I want your QuickBook numbers. They don't have QuickBooks, They'll have, financial statements in an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. Or they'll have to go, gosh, I need to go work on those, or hire somebody to go do those. But they have a great business.
Yeah. All right. So us three, we're sitting at a table, cocktails or coffee, depends what you guys drink, right? And we're sitting around and we're talking about a topic, and it could be business or personal. Jon, what's a topic? It could be a hobby. It could be something personal. What's something that you just love talking about?
Yeah, I got to tell you, tap dancing. I love talking about deals and deal flows. It's about business. I love it. I love reading Inc. magazine. I love reading Forbes. I love reading Fortune. I love listening to podcasts or talking about doing deals, man. I just listened to this one podcast called My First Million, and they were talking about a guy ex-Google guy that bought ad blocker, was doing 20 million plus downloads or plus and sold it for $200 million. One guy.
Yeah.
One guy.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool. So if we're just talking deals and business, like it tunes you up, man. You mentioned tap dance. Do you actually have experience tap dancing? Are you a tap dancer?
No. I got that phrase from Warren Buffett, man. He loves tap dancing to work. Yeah.
Got it. All right. Matt, what about you? What is what's a topic? What's the thing that it jazzes you up? You tap dance talking about it.
Yeah. And it really is deal flow. Like I kind of geek out with individuals talking about how they come across deals, what their ways are of coming about these deals, So I do a lot with Jon, cold email marketing, right? To only talk to people on the phone that are interested in an acquisition, right? I won't necessarily do the cold. I mean, I won't do the cold call right off the bat where I'm picking up and doing 100 calls a day, right? So, but it's interesting to see how other people do this, whether it's via LinkedIn, kind of like Jon, or there's other people out there that will do other sources or their networks. But I like that. That's what makes me tick.
Cool. So currently where you guys get deal flow, right? John's an expert in LinkedIn, got 20,000 plus followers. Great job. Matt, you got over 14,000, right? Like, so you guys are doing pretty good at creating an inbound engine through LinkedIn. Matt, you mentioned cold email, right? As a cold email response, reaching out to people and saying, hey, I'm looking at this. Would you be open to that? Having a conversation, only talking to the people that, want or interested to have that conversation. Now, you guys are also part of a mastermind and a network that creates deal flow and opportunities. What have you found in terms of trying to find deal flow that just does not work, right? So, what things are you looking at for, business acquisitions that just do not work in today's age? Either one of you guys could grab.
I'll let Matt go on that. Yeah.
Usually what doesn't work every time, but is the biggest time vampire, is people go to brokerage websites, right? Deals that are for sale publicly. So bizbuysell.com. And it doesn't mean these are bad places or anything like that. It's just the type of deals we're looking for. These owners are looking for top dollar, and they're willing to sometimes sit, and if not, there's just a lot of intricacies, different variables on the table, and because sometimes someone's looking to sell, but we get talking to them and they realize there's a lot of other options that are to them that they have available to them, and we end up consulting for them, and they're able to keep their business, which ends up being a lot better for them and better for us. So yeah, I'd say going to brokerage websites is probably one of the number one for me. That's a deal killer. It takes a lot of time and it looks great and everything, but once you start diving into that, it's a rabbit hole for people like us.
Yeah. All right, John. So we're hanging out, and I'm new to the industry. I've never been, I've never acquired a business. I won the lottery, so I got some money, but I want to get into acquisitions because I think it's cool. But I'd like you to mentor me, right? So walk me through what you think we're going to plan out 2022 in terms of mentorship and guidance, and what are some things that you think I should do to start learning and growing and be a part of your team?
Yeah, I'd be cautious for somebody that won a lottery, because it's, fool and his money are soon departed kind of deal. But I would say to start tagging along, and they do this in the venture capital community with angel lists. Is you start tagging along with somebody that's already did it, and you just say, hey, where do I jump in? Where do I dip my toes in this first to see if I even like it before I start buying a company for $5 million and I'm stuck, right? Find somebody that's done it before, likes doing it, has done a number of them, and then just tag along and say, hey, look, I'd like to shadow you. I'd like to get involved. How do I help you? And he'll say, I need deal sourcing, or I need deal funding, or something like that.
Very cool. All right. Got it. So let me ask a few more questions. So before I ask the question, I guess the question should be this: Matt, what question do you have for John or myself that you'd like to bring up to the table? Sometimes I forget to offer the mic to the other person.
That's a good question. I don't know. I always ask people, if I can help provide value in any way with whatever you're doing, let me know. That's kind of what I want to do, is create value for you, if possible, in any way.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. I've interviewed like 800 or so 100 people or something like that. When you said that, I believed you. So really good on you, man. I felt that about you. John, what's a question that you like to ask, people when you interview them? Because you've done a ton of podcast shows and you're a great host yourself. What's a question that you like to ask?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same kind of field. Like, how can I be of service to you? What do you need? I mean, I got to tell you, I interviewed a guy who became a multi-millionaire by being the number 2 man, and he was very comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Very comfortable with look, man, what if I just roll my services into this vision that you have, and we'll go accomplish it together, and I'll do everything you need me to do. And they built a $240 million revenue company. He became a multi-millionaire, just helping somebody else accomplish their vision.
Mm-hmm. It's being comfortable in your own skin. It's being comfortable with your own skills, your own talents, your own strengths, And then also your own weaknesses, I think, is where people start tap dancing in their own life and they start getting traction. Matt, what's a good, you can't recommend, Epic already, because you already said that that's awesome. You can't even recommend Jon's podcast, so he'll have to, but what's a good resource for people who want to get into the acquisition game, book or podcast? What's another one that you could recommend?
I don't know. There's a lot of gurus out there that have books. There's a book. It's called Go Do Deals by Jeremy Harbour. Jeremy's a great access, just because he's been doing it a while. What I tell individuals also, because some people are like, I don't want to fork out 15, 20 grand to join some mastermind, or they don't have the money. Whatever that is I tell people, I actually did a video on this through my LinkedIn, but it's just create as much value as possible for that individual. And I just pertained it to myself, and kind of telling my own story was, hey, find individuals that are already doing it. Like Jon mentioned, go to them. And my superpower has been deal flow, And so I approach those individuals and say, hey, this is the value I can help provide. What is it that you're searching for exactly? And then bring those deals to them. And don't bring them brokerage website deals, because that's not what they're looking for, right? But if you can actually bring and create, because talking about creating value is a great thing, but if you can actually create a value for them in any way, if it's doing due diligence or whatever that is, then you just earned yourself a mentor that you're paying for through your skills, of creating value. And then you're a fly on the wall, and possibly are going to be taking equity, if not a finder's fee for that business. And you're jumping in with 2 feet. And the best way you're going to learn how to do anything is by doing it. Talking about it sounds sweet and everything, but it's not going to get you anywhere. Yeah. Right. So.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Jon. All right. So you got a podcast. Tell us what your podcast is called.
It's Top M&A Entrepreneurs.
Okay. Awesome. And you've mentioned Roland's group. What is another resource? It could be about business. It could be about acquisitions, or it could be about personal stuff. What's another good book that after we have our coffee chat, you said, Josh, before you leave, you got to read this book, bro. And you hand it to me. What's that book?
Oh, crap. You're going to mention when I joined Epic, I go, man, I love doing this. So I probably bought 20 books on mergers and acquisitions from this. And I can't recommend any one specific book, but I'm happy to put that list in the podcast. But one of the first to me is understanding finances. You could be great at deal flow, but there's a book by Keith Cunningham called The Ultimate Blueprint, and it's about finances and understanding the income statement, because it tells you a story. Understanding the cash flow statement and the balance sheet tell you a story about the business, whether they're a good operator and turning assets to cash flow. And you could tell so much, but just studying the financial documents for just a couple of days. Cool. I mean, Warren Buffett does it in 72 hours and makes an offer from just not talking to the owner, but looking at the financial documents.
That's so awesome. Yeah, he's done pretty well for himself, I hear. So
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Jon, you and I get to go in the future, and we could have a conversation with yourself 20 years from now, right? So how old are you now, Jon?
I'm 60.
All right. So we get to talk to your 80-year-old self. We're sitting on the front porch on a rocking chair, having some scotch or moonshine or whatever we do, right? And you get to ask one piece of advice from your future self. What piece of advice would you ask?
Yeah, that's a great question. I say, look, probably should have listened to your internal self, like getting close to inspiration and God, and kind of being clear on all the distractions and serving others. Like, did you listen to those questions? Did you focus on that?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Matt, you get to go back in time and talk to yourself when you're like right around 14, 15 years old, and you got like 30 seconds with the dude, with the 13, 14-year-old Matt, but you can't ask anything, but you could say one thing before you depart. What would you say to your 13 or 14-year-old self?
I mean, I don't know. It would probably be similar to just stay honest. stay true to yourself type thing. And keep pushing through. What's that saying that they have? Like, keep on keeping on, because I've had a lot of ups and downs, the entrepreneurial feast or famine, and you're trying a lot of new things out there, and the majority of them are gonna fail, I guess, or they don't pan out. I guess the real failure is when you stop trying, right? So I don't like using the word fail, but when they don't pan out, and it's a numbers game, just like anything else. So it's the law of large numbers, right?
Yeah.
So
Matt, you and I do a deal, dude. We crush it. We make a lot of money, and like where money really doesn't matter anymore, but you get to treat yourself. Like, I like hats. I'm probably going to buy a cool hat, even though I'm not wearing right. I've got a bunch of hats over there. Like, I like hats. What's your thing, man? What would you buy?
Memories. So my wife and I are huge on creating memories with ourselves and with our family. So I got 4 kids, 1 on the way. It's a party, and versus buying something that ends up going to a thrift store 6 months later,
Yeah.
We like to purchase memories, because that's something that stays
4
with
kids and 1 on the way. Yeah, you definitely have to be create a bunch of deals, right? That's why you're the hunter. That'll keep you motivated.
It's motivation, right?
It's 2 deals for every kid. Yeah.
That's right. John, what about you? We just crushed a huge deal, and you get to go buy something cool for yourself to treat yourself. What would you do?
It's the same thing, man. It would be the memory stuff. I mean, my kid, like Matt said, my kid loves thrift shopping now. She goes, buys these stuff, and I go, okay, that's where clothes end up. I mean, I've been on the side buying a couple $100 shirt, and now it's in the thrift store. That there's nothing there. The what's there is the memory with your kid and wife, and whether that's in Ireland, you're going, oh, did you see that? That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing, or something. It's about those memories. I think Matt's. I'm going to second what Matt said.
Well, thanks, guys. That made me feel really shallow. I'm going to go buy a hat. You guys are like, yeah, I'm going to invest in my family and spend time with them and create memories. All right. Well, that felt me great.
We might buy a hat
with my kids.
We might buy a hat in Ireland, right?
Yeah.
On a trip.
Yeah. There you go.
You got it, guys. All right. So let's do this. John, someone in the audience wants to listen in on your podcast, connect with you, and do a deal. Where are they going to find you and do a deal with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn on Jon Stoddard, Jon Stoddard on LinkedIn, or they can go to Stack Acquisitions. That's where my podcast is. That's Stack, like in dealstackacquisitions.com. Or I'm on YouTube, which is Jon Stoddard, or just do a search for top M&A entrepreneurs.
Cool. Matt, how do you pronounce the name of your capital business?
So it's strategic sourcing.
Okay.
And then there's Opulentia that I work with also. Yeah.
Got it. That's what I saw. Okay. So where can people go to connect with you and do a deal with you?
So I'd say just connect with me first on LinkedIn. I've started following your guys' suit where it's social media and getting that out. But right now I'd say LinkedIn is probably the best and quickest way for me to respond to you.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So fellow deal makers in the audience, right? If you want deal flow off market properties and you want to work with a group that could help you accelerate the process and maybe help do on the due diligence and sourcing, reach out to our guests here, Matt and John. Reach out to them on LinkedIn. Their links will be in the show notes below. So connect with them, find a way to do a deal with them, and tell them thanks for being on the show. Deal makers out there, if you're working on a specific deal, looking for a specific deal, and want to talk about it here on the show, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, maybe get you on the show next. Till then, talk to you all on the next episode. See you, everybody.